Well, welcome, folks, to a conversation. My name is Josh Gordon, just Josh Gordon, not Josh Gordon. My name is Josh Gordon. I'm the senior editor at theleadpastor.com, and I'm sitting here with my new friend Thomas Costello. Thomas, you're from Reach Right Studios. Why don't you give a quick blip about the company? I'd love to hear more about your background as well in terms of church leadership, and then
Yeah.
we can get some great conversation about Google Grants. So.
Yeah, should be fun. My name's Thomas. I am the founder of Reach Right. We started Reach Right back in 2016, helping churches do all things digital marketing, and started out doing websites for churches back then. And shortly after, about 2017 or so, I was pastoring a local church, and we were actually doing well, and we heard about this Google grant, and I decided to give it a shot for my church.
Mhm.
We had a guy within our church who was someone that had a AdWord business, so he helped mostly paid clients spend money with Google and run their ad accounts. And we asked him to, hey, can you take a crack at this? And it went gangbusters. We did fantastically with it at our church in Madison, Wisconsin. We were spending like $10,000 a month of Google's money for free. And every week we went from having almost no visitors to having 10 to 15 visitors every single week. And so we kind of realized, I have this company that's helping churches with marketing. Nobody is out there doing this right now, helping churches spend this free money. And so we kind of put two and two together and decided to really double down on helping churches with this Google grant product and helping them spend Google's money. So among other things, we also do things like local search engine optimization, web development, some video editing stuff for shorts and TikTok and Reels and those kinds of things. But it's been really a fun ride for us over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I remember hearing that Google offers a $10,000, is it $10,000 per month? That's
That's it.
right?
Yeah, $10,000 a month. It's almost unbelievable when you hear it, right? For most me as a pastor of a church of like 40 people, it's like that's like more than our entire church's budget for the whole year. Is how much they give us in free ads. So it's incredible.
That's wild. So I mean, for pastors maybe who either they're hearing about this for the first time or maybe they've heard about it but discounted it, maybe can you maybe talk about the impact that Google grants can actually have, and maybe just specifically try can we try to avoid speaking layman's terms as much as possible, so just to kind of help to kind of set the stage a little bit. And
Sure.
and I guess my goal with the question is that to help make it real, make it okay, what's this actually mean in terms of people through the door, that type of thing.
Yeah. So it is complex, and that's one of the big challenges of it. So I think that's a great question, Josh, to try and walk through. So the bottom line is that there is the platform that people use when you do a search. You'll usually see a few different results when you do a search on Google, and usually at the very top you'll see ads. So that's the first thing that comes up. Then you'll see a map, which is called the map pack. That's where you find local results typically, and then below that you have what's called your organic results. So what Google does with the grant is for any nonprofit that's eligible, they give you $10,000 a month to spend to help your ads get into that top bracket there right on the platform. So it really is that. I think that's the biggest hurdle to overcome is there has to be a catch, or there has to be something fake about this. And really there isn't. I guess if there's a catch is that it can be kind of complex to be able to actually spend the $10,000, and you need a little bit of either to learn it yourself or have someone on your team that has some expertise on how to do it. But so that's what we do. And that's what churches have the opportunity to do is when people look for searches or they're putting in searches into Google, that you can show up at the top there. Now, here's the thing is that if your strategy with this is say, okay, that sounds great. Whenever someone searches for churches in Nantucket or wherever you live, that I want to come up there. The problem with that is that not enough people type that into Google. There's not enough people typing in churches in Austin or churches in Toronto or wherever it would be. So what you have to do is you have to actually get a little bit further down the road and think about other things that are church adjacent, if you will, that people might be typing into a search engine that you can provide answers for. So we've seen results where churches have done things like marriage help. So people that are looking for marriage seminars in a church can make some content in that and then get people to show up on their site, and you can provide answers for those things. And with that is you can help them kind of make the decision that, well, this church probably has some answers on our marriage issues or our parenting issues or our finance issues or whatever it would be. Maybe we should go visit them this Sunday and get plugged in. So that's kind of the process. Usually what we try to do for churches is help them think through not just getting people onto the site, but how do we turn a site visitor then, because we can get them there with the grant, how do we turn them into people that actually will show up on a Sunday, which is what we care about the most typically, is helping people get in the door so we can get them plugged in and see our churches grow that way and reach more people with the gospel.
Awesome. Okay, so if what I'm hearing you say is that you can help people to get found online, and then the turning that online traffic into bodies through the front door on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely. So that can all happen online, right? Like, so that's something that just it takes the key. And I think so many churches miss this, is we treat our websites like they're just online brochures. And so if someone gets on there and they get onto your site because they're looking for a church or looking for finance advice, whatever it would be, you need to have methods to help them make that transition. So the key to that is call to action, right? And so this, Josh, as someone that runs a website, is you have to ask people to take a step. I think churches often miss this. So the most common way that we see people doing this now is what you call a plan your visit page or a plan your visit process. So someone can get on there, put in their information, and then that can pull forward for the church the follow-up process, the engagement process, and help them make that leap. And so what we found is that when churches do something like a plan your visit, or maybe even like an event registration, if it's a marriage seminar or a parenting seminar, something like that, when you can gather people's information, it just makes them much stickier, and their odds of actually showing up and then sticking when they have shown up, they really go through the roof in that case. So that's where we see the best results.
Yeah. So it also sounds like the $10,000 a month from Google for their Google ads, like that's a massive delivery. Like that's huge. But it sounds like the distance to that is maybe a little bit longer and more complicated than than most pastors maybe are interested in. Yeah. So I guess
I think go ahead.
So what I was going to say was, I guess if there's a pastor, someone who's like you in the sense, we're like, all right, I have enough interest in learning new things, and tech web stuff isn't my third language. It's maybe it's your second language. You're comfortable in the lingo. That's something that, okay, you could potentially start to untangle and figure out on your own. Would you say that's fairly accurate, or?
Yeah, so I think that it's something that it's not for the faint of heart. So it's not something that if you have no technical experience, if you're not someone that manages your church's, or open to managing your church's Facebook page or your Instagram page, this is orders of magnitude more complex than that, I would say. It's not unlearnable. We have people that at our team that have learned how to do it, and we've trained them, and there's Google certifications you can go through to get really good at it. And but I guess there's a few things I think I'd mention with this, is that as a company, we made a decision a long time ago that our heart was to be able to equip pastors that want to do this to do it. So we don't hold anything back. We have so much content on YouTube, on our blog, that like really walks you through every single step, and anything we can think of. We're not holding any secret sauce back on things. So we do think for pastors that are technical and want to dig into this, there is a chance to do that. I think for the average church, it's probably worth it to hire somebody to be able to do something like this for your church, so that you can focus on the things that you're called to do there, and having people that are probably going to be better than you at it actually executing it for you. So, and the numbers are really amazing with this, because I'll put this out here. We generally charge $297 a month at ReachRight to manage a grant for a church. and that means they can get up to $10,000 a month. So it's like a 30x return on investment for something like that. So it's really a no-brainer. If you don't have the time to do it, hire someone, and it makes total sense. It'll pay for itself 30 times over. So I think there's that. On top of that, I think that after, we have 170 active churches that we help with this grant right now, our team of multiple people that manage the grant for them. We have learned a ton about what works, what doesn't, what keywords, what ad phrasing, what landing pages, like all these kinds of things. I don't want to get too technical with that, but just rest assured, like when you have case studies and A/B testing over spending tens of millions of dollars of Google's money over the years, you learn a lot about what works and what doesn't. So I think generally speaking, a professional or someone outside of your church who knows this stuff can probably get better results. But again, for those that want to learn it, we want to equip you to do that. And there's tons of free resources to make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. And I was like, just from being on your website and reviewing, is like, there's so much stuff, so much great, practical, applicable, simple things, simple steps. It feels like you've taken a process that is very, like, it can be extremely complicated and broken it down into those bite-sized pieces. I mean, I do run a website, and so I speak the language enough to realize, like, I have like zero interest in running that for our church. And like, that's why we have volunteers. That's why we have people who are super excited to dig into that. And I'd say if your church doesn't have a volunteer team who's willing to kind of like take this on, then again, like that, it could be really, really useful and really valuable to bring people in who really know what they're doing. I've experienced that in different contexts, like so many times over. So what would you say? So putting yourself, or for the pastors who are listening, putting themselves in the place, like, okay, what are maybe next steps that they should take if they're interested in exploring what it looks like to work with you and your team, and taking advantage of like the $10,000 a month from Google that they have?
Yeah, totally. So you don't have to use our tool, but we tried to make a tool that's super easy that anybody can check their eligibility status. Google has a kind of a complicated legal document, but we've boiled it down to like 6 questions. And if you answer those, you can figure out once and for all, am I eligible or am I not? For most churches, you are eligible. The big question mark is your 501c3 status. So some churches have like a state level nonprofit status, and that's a little bit trickier to get you approved for the grant. But I'd say about 80 to 90% of churches that we talk to, they have either a full 501c3 status, or they're part of a denomination that has that status, and they're a kind of a child organization under that. So I pastor in a denomination called Foursquare, and that's the way we're set up. And so our big denomination has a 501c3 letter, and then every chartered church, which is what I'm a part of as a pastor, is that we have our own denomination letter, so we can get eligible for it. So long story short, use our eligibility checker. It's there, it's free. It'll tell you whether you're eligible or not. And from there, you have a couple of choices. You could hire someone like us. There's no charge for this if you're using our service. We'll get the grant for you. And if you're eligible, we always get it. So it's not a question of whether we can or not. I've been in this for a long time. Back when we started the grant originally, it was the wild, wild west. I had to write this letter to Google, kind of talking about our ministries. They wanted an essay that kind of told them what we were about as an organization. And I tried to make it really, appealing to a secular audience, as well as, still holding our convictions as an evangelical pastor of a church. So that was something that was kind of tricky to navigate. But now it really is just a few technical questions. We have a really good relationship with Google's validator. It's a company called m.st that we kind of work with, and we can usually get things approved pretty quickly. So you can go do it yourself if you'd like. If you hire someone like us, we'll get you approved for it. The steps are all kind of laid out at Google for nonprofits. And then from there, I'd say, kind of, if you want to do it yourself, start watching some of our videos. If you want someone like our team to tackle it, give us a ring. We'd be happy to talk you through it. We've tried our best to lay everything out on the site of exactly what you get and all the deliverables. But if there's any question at all, we have a team of people ready to answer any questions someone might have.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys have basically seen it all in terms of stuff from Google. You've kind of like nailed down, like, sounds like there aren't too many surprises for you anymore. Would you say that's fairly accurate, or?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess if we count like being surprised as something that doesn't surprise us, we do see things all the time. Once in a while, we'll run into a church that just, we have just issues that Google doesn't like with their website or
Yeah.
something like that we have to address, and that's rare. I mean, I think maybe 1 out of 20 or something. There's some hurdles and hiccups that we run into, but there isn't anything new under the sun for us.
Yeah.
Though we've been through this, and on the very rare occasions that we can't get someone to get approved or to be able to spend the amount of money we want them to spend in the grant, we can kind of usually solve for that and try and find solutions there. But yeah, I don't want to give the impression that it's always perfect. We have, the vast majority of our clients are extremely happy with it, but occasionally they're still happy with us, but it's usually kind of the Google is not being cooperative. Here's one thing I've found is when you use these big tech companies, if you're paying them for a service, they're very communicative. But if you're not paying them for something, like with the grant, there is virtually no support for it. So you're kind of left guessing, what is the way to solve this? Why am I not getting clicks? Those kinds of things. There's not someone you can just reach out and talk to at Google. They're very unhelpful with that. But if you're paying them, as someone that runs paid ads as well for our company, I know that they call me twice a week wanting to talk about our performance and give us help and help us get better results with things. So yeah, it can be a little tricky, but yeah, I think you're right in saying that we've seen just about everything I think there is to see. Like I said, I think our most recent number is something like $12 million we've spent of Google's money for our clients over the last few years. So it's kind of crazy to think about.
Literally money on the table. Like, that's wild.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild. So, okay. So one first question I have is, so what does it look like in an average month for a pastor or for a church, let's say mid-sized church in the 400 people? Like, what does it look like to be working with you in terms of, like, whether it's meetings, reports, like that type of thing? So that's one question. And the second thing is, what are some fairly common results that that churches might actually see?
Sure. Yeah. And we'll focus more on the results, like of actual on the ground results. I think how much money you spend is really, it's cool to know you're spending that much money, but in actual results, that's kind of something that I think is more important. So as far as to work with us, what it typically looks like is we start out wanting to make sure we really understand your church and what kind of ads we need to be making for your church, what's unique about your church, what makes you special. And we can get a lot of this from your site, but usually it starts with a conversation, kind of a discovery call for us. From there, we've done this enough to know that like about 70% of our ads are ones that we use for other churches as well, because they're proven to work. And then about 30% of them are ones that we'll make specifically for your unique situation. And that's more kind of like a testing environment, right? We don't know if it's going to work or not. If it's really resonating in your community, we have a pretty good guess, but we kind of do some of that testing. So the way we do it is typically we'll send you a monthly report on, hey, here's what we've seen as far as what we've spent. Here's how many people have clicked onto your site. And then here's the really big number that we manage is how many conversions have you seen? So conversions can mean lots of different things. It doesn't mean like in a biblical sense or like a converting to faith, but it means like for the uninitiated, as a marketing term, when we talk about conversions, it's how many people are doing the action we want them to do on the website. So we talked about the plan your visit idea, right? So a conversion in that case is someone that sees an ad, clicks onto your website, fills out the form, and says, yes, I'm coming this weekend. Like that's a conversion. What we can't measure is, do they actually show up? We personally can't measure that, but we have our churches measure that on the ground. And once a quarter, we want to have kind of a sit down 30-minute conversation and assess what's working, what isn't. Here's what we can do to get better results, to spend more of Google's money, to get more conversions, doing those kinds of things. So as far as the actual results, we actually have a calculator that we built into our site where people can put in a few variables, and there's only a few variables to play with. Like, so how much of Google's money do you spend? What is the average click-through rate, which generally speaking for us is between 5 and 10% of the time when we show your ads. That's how many people click on them. And then what is the kind of conversion rate on the ground? What percentage of those people show up? Generally speaking, those that click on the ad, we're seeing usually around 0.5% to 1% make a visit to the church. So that's kind of what's normal for us. And then the question for you is, can you get them plugged into your church? So the average church sees about 20% of visitors turn into fully committed members. So, the rough math is, let's say you spend all $10,000 a month, which doesn't usually happen right out of the gate. Let's use a more conservative number. Let's call it $5,000 a month right out of the beginning. If you have 5,000 people, $5,000 are spent. On average, we're spending about $2 per click is what it costs. So $5,000 means about 2,500 clicks, right? So out of those 2,500 clicks, let's say that's how many people are getting on your site. If you get something like 1%, let's say 1% of them come up, that's 25 new visitors in a month, which if you get 20% of those to turn into members, that's 5 new church members every single month. So of a medium-sized church of a couple hundred people, do 60 new members that are coming from this. Does that make a big difference to you? I think for most churches it does. So that's kind of the rough math. Now, those are a lot of assumptions there. We have a full calculator I'm sure we can link to wherever you're seeing this video here. You could see the full calculator, put in your own assumptions on things and what works for your church, and you can kind of do the math for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is going too biblical too quickly. I don't know if you ever can do that, but like what comes to my mind immediately is like the analogy of like, this is like somebody running around saying, hey, have you seen this church? You got to go check it out. And then sending people to your church website. And like, and I'm sure like there's the woman at the well, you could say, there's like, come and see the man who told me everything I ever did. Like,
that's good.
I'm sure there are other biblical analogies we can pull from it. But so let me maybe like kind of like wrapping up the conversation with a kind of like a general question. What would you say to a pastor who is maybe a little bit on the fence, and maybe there are maybe blockers or hesitancies that he might be having? Like, maybe what I'm actually asking is like, what are some of the really common blockers and hesitancies that you've seen, and then how do you help people get past them?
Yeah. So I think the first one is just they don't believe that it's real, because we're taught to be super skeptical about this kind of stuff with good reason. There's so many things that are scams, but I can tell you, as someone that really does this, done it for myself, done it for hundreds of churches, our team does it every single day. We eat, breathe, and sleep this. That is something that is real. It is real money. It can actually make visitors. We have tons of people that are happy in doing it. So yeah, it really is a real thing. I think the second biggest maybe fear that people have out of this is just the overall time commitment. And I don't want to whitewash that is a legitimate concern. Like, it does take time. So I would say realistically, my team here, like, so people that do this all the time and are the fastest and best at it in the world, that manage ad accounts, they probably spend on average about 5 hours a month per account. So right out of the gate, I think it's something that this is for good people, like, that are really good at this stuff here. So if you have to learn it and do it, I think the average church would probably be looking at something like 10 hours a month on your own to do something that is adequate, right? To be able to make that happen. That's beyond all the learning and figuring out how to do stuff. And imagine much more than that when you first get started. So to tell a typical pastor, hey, do you have an extra 2 or 3 hours a week, just to, half a day a week to dedicate to something like this? Probably not. That's going to be a pretty tall order for most of us. So that's why for so many, it makes sense just to say, hey, it's I can't do it, but it's worth it for us to hire someone. The return on investment is there. So yeah, and again, I shared this before, but this is literally the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to marketing for churches. Now, I have a church marketing company. We've talked exclusively about the grant, but we help churches with websites and local search engine optimization and social media things, making short form videos and those things. We do all that. But I think the obvious starting point is, yeah, a website. You need a website to do this also. But after that, this is $10,000 of free money. Take the free money and then do it. It's almost like if you have an employer match at your job, right, where you get free money if you put some money into your advertising, into your retirement account, they'll match whatever you put in for the first 3% or something like that. And every financial advisor says, take it, do that. This is the same thing, only they match it 30 times what we charge for something like this. So it really is kind of a no-brainer in that regard. But if it's not in the cards for you, you want to tackle it yourself, I think that is a hesitation that's legitimate. It takes a lot of work to make it happen. Still nothing to lose, but something that to consider and count the cost on.
Yeah. Well, if you are listening to this and you're curious, I would highly recommend go to check out Thomas Costello. Is it ReachRight Studios?
Yep, reachrightstudios.com. I think for most people, the place to start is the grant eligibility checker and just find out, see if it's something that you're eligible for or not. And then, from there, we have tons of information, videos on YouTube, like literally dozens of blog posts about not only the why, but the how to and the granular of it, of how you can do it, how you can apply, how to get approved. All those kinds of things are all in there. So please dig in.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, man, thoroughly enjoyed our chat. Looking forward to more in the future, hopefully. Thanks for your time. And if you're paying attention to this, make sure to check out reachrightstudios.com.
Thanks, Josh.